And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live, and we so barely made it tonight. Uh, I was off painting. I was painting down at the Bellows Falls train station. I had a lovely time, but then I came rushing back, and I hadn't yet chosen what I'm reading, so it was something. But we made it, and here I am, and no one is watching, which is great. It is, after all, what is it? What is it? It is Labor Day weekend, and everybody is off laboring or daying or something. Hi, Facebook user. I wonder who Facebook user is. Is that Martha? Hi, Martha, if that's Martha. If it's Facebook user, hi, Facebook user. Anyway, we had a great time painting down at the train station. And I was setting up to paint, and this person came up to me and said, "Are you Charlie Hunter?" And I said, "Yes, I was." And it turns out he's taking my class next week in Michigan. And he was up in Bellows Falls. Yes, it's Martha, says Facebook user. Hi, Martha. But that was kind of neat. And then the train came by, and the conductor said, "Can I see your painting?" And I showed him the painting. He was like, "That's good." I said, "Are you coming back down tomorrow?" And he said he was, and I said I would swing by with a completed painting. Turned out all right. Turned out all right, ladies and gentlemen. But as I say, I am scattered. We have, let's see, what is happening? What is happening is we are well on our way to endowing the Ray Masuko stool. What I got very bollocksed up because Facebook fundraisers, it's very hard to keep track of who has donated and who hasn't and when they end and all kinds of things. So what I did was as we move into September, which is both the birthday month of Ray Masuko, his birthday's in 3 days, and the 27th is the day he shuffled off to the great music festival in the sky. We are racing toward the goal of raising $5,000 by the 27th of September. And let's see, I think we have, well, I didn't write that down, but I started a new fundraiser today for the amount of money needed, which is $1,965 is what was needed. And that's neat because that's the year that Ray graduated from the great and good Bellows Falls Union High School. I guess it wasn't a union high school then, Bellows Falls High School. Anyway, we raised, it looks like several $100s, like $400 or $500 so far today with the new fundraiser. And we have a few people to thank. Even though my very, very, very tall cousin is not one of them. He may have decided to hell with this, or he may just be busy doing something else on Labor Day weekend. But we have to thank, first off, a whole cadre of Masukai. I think that's the plural of Masuko, right? We have Sarah Jane Masuko. We have Jenny Masuko. We have Judson Brown. We have the great Catherine Fisher. We have Will Hunter. We have Steve LaSala. We have my watercolorist friend, Ian Stewart. Whoa, that wasn't very enthusiastic about Ian Stewart, was it? We have my watercolorist friend, Ian Stewart. Much better. Oh, our good friend, Susan McNeil. Ms. Catherine Fisher, thank you as ever, Catherine. And also, as ever, the wonderful Terry Hudson. Sloan Moritz. The great Rick McDonald. You hang in there, Rick McDonald. It's good to see you again. My friend Meg Spencer. The great Norley Hall. Bob Ross. Emily Burgonier. Martha Rowley. And of course, a naughty moose. right, thank you all. We are well on our way. We are well on our way to endowing the Ray Masuko Stool at the Miss Bellows Falls Diner. Anyway, Jackie Fry says, see you in Lowell, Michigan, September 12th. Well, I will see you then. I will see you then. All right. All right. Now, I believe I've read this sometime in the past, though I don't remember exactly when. And I have not done a read through this evening, so if I stumble, please bear with me. A talk to young men. Graduation address on the decline of sex. To you young men who only recently were graduated from our various institutions of learning, laughter, I would bring a message of warning, and yet at the same time, a message of good cheer. Having been out in the world a whole month, it is high time that you learn something about the facts of life. Something about how wonderfully nature takes care of the 1,001 things which go to make up what some people jokingly call our sex life. I hardly know how to begin. Perhaps Dear Harry would be as good a way as any. You have all doubtless seen during your walks in the country how the butterflies and the bees carry pollen from one flower to another. It is very dull, and you should be very glad that you are not a bee or a butterfly, for where the fun comes in that I cannot see. However, they think they're having a good time, which is all that's necessary, I suppose. Someday a bee is going to get a hold of a real book on the subject, and from then on, there'll be mighty little pollen toting done, or I don't know my bees. Well, anyway, if you've noticed carefully how the bees carry pollen from one flower to another, then there is no reason really why you should have noticed carefully, as there is nothing to see. You will have wondered what connection there is between this process and that of animal reproduction. I may as well tell you right now that there is no connection at all. So your whole morning of bee stalking has been wasted. We now come to the animal world. Or rather, first we come to 125th Street, but you don't get off there. The animal world is next. And off you get. And what a sight meets your eyes. My, it just seems as if the whole world were topsy-turvy. Hang on a second, I'm going to take a sip using my Benchley Night mug. Coffee by morning, Benchley by night. The next time you're at your grocer's buying gin, take a look at his eggs. Well, they're really some hen's eggs, but they belong to the grocer now, as he bought them and is entitled to sell them. So they really are his eggs, funny as that may sound to anyone who doesn't know. If you will look at these eggs, you will see that one is almost round, but not quite. They're more of an egg shape. This may strike you as odd at first, until you learn that this is nature's way of distinguishing eggs from golf balls. You see, Mother Nature takes no chances. She used to, but she learned her lesson. And that is a lesson all of you must learn as well. It is called Old Mother Nature's Lesson, and it begins on page 145. Now, these eggs have not always been like this. That stands to reason. They once had something to do with a hen, or they wouldn't be called hen's eggs. If they're called duck's eggs, that means they had something to do with a duck. Who can tell me what it means if they're called ostrich eggs? That's right. But the egg is not the only thing that had something to do with the hen. Who knows what else there was? That's right. Now, the rooster is an entirely different sort of bird from the hen. It is very proud and has a red crest on top of its head. This red crest is put there by Mother Nature so that the hen can see the rooster coming in a crowd. And so the hen can see the rooster coming in a crowd and can hop into a taxi or make a previous engagement if she wants to. A favorite dodge of a lot of hens when they see the red crest of the rooster making in their direction across the barnyard is to work up a sick headache. One of the happiest, most contented roosters I ever saw was one who had his red crest chewed off in a fight with a dog. He also wore sneakers. But before we take up this phase of the question, for it is a question, let us go back to the fish kingdom. Fish are probably the worst. Fish are probably the worst example you can find. In the first place, because they work underwater, and in the second, because they don't know anything. You won't find one fish in a million that has enough sense to come in when it rains. They're just stupid, that's all. And nowhere is their stupidity more evident than in their sex life. Take, for example, the carp. The carp is one of the least promising of all the fish. He has practically no forehead and brings nothing at all to a conversation. Now, the mother carp is swimming around some fine spring day when suddenly she decides it would be nice to have some children. So she makes out a deposit slip and deposits a couple of million eggs on a rock. All this goes on underwater, mind you, of all places. This done, she adjusts her hat, powders her nose, and swims away, a woman with a past. It is not until all this is over and done with that Papa enters the picture, and then only in an official capacity. Papa's job is very casual. He swims over the couple of million eggs and takes a chance that by sheer force of personality, he can induce half a dozen of them to hatch out. The remainder either go to waste or are blacked up to represent caviar. So you will see that the sex life of a fish is nothing much to brag about. It never would present a problem in a fish community as it does in ours. No committees ever have to be formed to regulate it. And about the only way in which a fish can go wrong is through drink or stealing. This makes a fish's life highly unattractive, you'll agree, for after a time, one would get very tired of drinking and stealing. We've now covered the various agencies of nature for populating the earth with the lesser forms of life. We have purposely omitted any reference to the reproduction of those unicellular organisms, which reproduce by dividing themselves up into 2, 4, 8, etc. parts without any outside assistance at all. This method is too silly to even discuss. We now come to colors. You all know that if you mix yellow with blue, you get green. You also get green if you mix cherries and milk. Just kidding, don't pay any attention. The derivation of one color from the mixture of 2 other colors is not generally considered a sexual phenomenon, but that is because the psychoanalysts have not gotten around to that yet. By next season, it won't be safe to admit that you like to paint, or you'll be giving yourself away as an inhibited old uncle lover and debauchee. The only thing that the sex psychologist can't read a sexual significance into is trap shooting. And they're working on that right now. All of which brings us to the point of wondering if it all isn't a gigantic hoax. If the specialists fall down on trap shooting, they're going to begin to doubt the whole structure which they have erected. And before long, it's going to be a reaction which will take the form of an absolute negation of sex. An Austrian scientist has already come out with the announcement that there's no such thing as 100% male or 100% female. If this is true, it is really a big step forward. It's going to throw a lot of people out of work, but think of the money that will be saved. And so, young men, my message to you is this. Think the things over very carefully and examine the evidence with fair-minded detachment. And if you decide that within the next 10 years, sex is going out of style, make your plans accordingly. Why not be pioneers in a new movement? All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right. It is 8:02 p.m. Maybe, should we have one more? Let's see if I have one. Oh, I read that one recently. I read both of those recently. I read that one recently. Oh, here, we'll read this one. I've never read it before. Never read it before. Yes, Betty Sue, one more. Hi, Betty Sue. Ladies and gentlemen, Betty Sue. Betty Sue is down there in Texas where it's 8 million degrees. She has been on tour with James McMurtry. She is about to go out on tour again with James McMurtry starting on Tuesday. You know what she did last week? Because she didn't have enough else to do? She had foot surgery on both her feet. Then she played a gig last night. Let's have a cheer. Let's raise a glass to Betty Sue, the great Betty Sue. We miss you, Betty Sue. We miss you. News from home. Sometime, maybe sooner than I think, I am going to stop writing little pieces for the newspapers and retire to my llama farm in Peru. I dread it in a way because I was once badly chased by a llama. At any rate, that was my story at the time. Aside from this dread of llamas, and a slight vagueness concerning the location of Peru, I'm going to resent getting out of touch with the homeland. I am going to want to subscribe to newspapers from the States, if only to keep an eye on the help wanted ads. I don't even know whether there's any money in llamas at all or not. And here comes the sad part. After years of scanning newspapers for strange items on which to vent my wrath, I have incapacitated myself for regular newspaper reading. I see nothing on the printed page but what might be called the curiosa. The long stories concerning international financial scandals and State Department crises escape me. I am a slave to the oddments in the news. What am I going to do when I get to Peru and just want to glance over a newspaper to see what the home folk are doing? Suppose, for example, I had been in Peru today, and coming in from a llama inventory, I had been greeted with the news that a bundle of papers had arrived from the States. I had settled myself with a glass of lemonade for a quiet evening with the latest dispatches from New York, Chicago, or the Pacific Coast. I might even have a native woman strum a guitar for me as I read. What am I able to discover? What are the only items in today's news that catch my eye? A. Zebe, the infant American zebra, born in the Fleshika Zoo in San Francisco, is a 100 striper Ordinarily, zebras have but 90 to 95 discernible stripes from nose to tail tip, but Zeb has 100. B. Herman Strutter of Perry, New York, says that a beaver gnawed off his wooden leg while he was asleep and shows teeth marks to doubters. C. Fire Chief John T. Oliver of the Marblehead, Massachusetts Fire Department resigned from service because he cannot get his 150 call firemen to attend fires. They take Sundays and holidays off without notifying him, and he cannot fine them the customary $1 in such cases, as they are civil service employees and are thus immune from such fines. D. Japanese fishermen train cormorants to work for them. The birds dive for fish and they catch them at the rate of 100 per hour, bring them to the boat, and deliver them, frequently under protest, to their trainers. E. People in Binghamton, New York looked out of their windows and found the ground covered with snowballs, rolling along without visible means of propulsion and increasing in size as they rolled. The Weather Bureau explained that this was a phenomenon rare in the East, resulting from a peculiar combination of soft, wet snow, a high wind, and a temperature of about 36 degrees. What kind of news is that for a homesick man to read in a batch of papers fresh off the boat? And yet, they are the only items that caught my eye in the day's dispatches. I have been trafficking so long in this type of stuff that I can see nothing else. I sometimes wonder if it's all been worthwhile. I sometimes even wonder if I shall ever get to Peru. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right, that concludes Benchley Night for this week. We'll be back next week. And hopefully my very, 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 very tall cousin will have returned. Hopefully he'll have returned to the fold. The prodigal cousin will kill the fatted rooster for him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you take good care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.